Before we begin, let's rewind for a minute. So far, Temujin's life has mostly been about survival. He's the boy whose father was poisoned at a feast, whose family was abandoned on the steppe, who killed his own half-brother Bektar rather than live under his authority, who was chained in a wooden yoke by his own clan and escaped only because a poor servant family risked everything to cut him free. Somewhere in that blur of childhood trauma, there was a promise, a girl called Börte. This is the part of the story where Temujin goes back to get her. Temujin is around 16 when he decides it's time. He hasn't seen Börte in roughly 7 years, ever since his father first took him to a family's camp. But now he has survived starvation, slavery, and family murder. He has a small band around him again. And he decides, I'm going to go find her. He rides out with his half-brother Bilgutai along the Kereyid river to find the white felt tent of Börte's father. When they finally find the family gear, there is a huge moment of truth. Will she even still be there? By this age, 17 or 18, a steppe woman is usually already married off. But when Temujin ducks into the tent, he finds that Börte has waited for him. For whatever mix of reasons, her family's respect for the original promise, some memory of this boy from her childhood, or maybe the simple lack of other offers, Börte is still unmarried. Börte's father knows about Temujin's reputation. He knows that his family has been abandoned and that they have been living rough on the margin, that Temujin has enemies. But he somehow still allows for the marriage to go ahead. Börte doesn't come empty-handed. A bride on the steppe brings clothing to honor her new in-laws. In a world where you move every season, you can't drag heavy dowries around, but a single excellent garment carries huge prestige. Börte's family sends her with the most prized fur on the steppe, a black sable coat. Now here's where Temujin does something very un-teenage. When he looks at that coat, he sees a political weapon. Temujin's father Yesuge once had an anda bond with a very powerful man named Ong Khan of the Kereyid. The Kereyid aren't a little clan. They are a proper tribal confederation in central Mongolia, controlling lush pastures north of the Gobi. Temujin knows that his own clan is weak, and that he won't be able to protect his family alone. So he makes a calculated move. He will use this coat not for his own vanity, but to revive his father's old alliance. He brings Börte back to his family's camp, leaves her there with his mother, and rides out with his brothers Khasar and Belgutai to find Ong Khan's camp. When he's finally standing in front of the old Khan, he presents the sable coat as if he were a son bringing a gift to his father. On the steppe, that's not just a gesture, that's a statement. He's basically saying, you were my father's sworn brother. Treat me as a son, let me into your protection. Ong Khan accepts the coat. He accepts the relationship. He also offers Temujin a position as a junior leader, a local commander over other young warriors. But in a telling display of his lack of interest in any titles, Temujin turns that part down. All he wants very clearly is protection for his family. And with that assured, he rides back to Kerala, finally ready to enjoy life as a newly married man with his bride, under the shadow of a powerful protector. For once, things finally look like they might go right. Life in his little camp actually becomes good for some time. It includes Erlun, Suchigil the other widow. There's even an old woman everyone simply calls grandmother. 2 young men have joined in. Burchu, who started as a stranger helping Temujin chase stolen horses, and Jilme, who was likely given to Temujin earlier as a companion. Add in his brothers and they become 7 teenage boys with bows, horses and attitudes. Then there's Börte. In a life mostly full of cold, hunger and violence, she probably is the first thing that feels like sunlight to him. But that's exactly when the past comes back. Nearly 20 years earlier, Temujin's mother had been kidnapped from her first husband by Temujin's father. That husband was from the Merkid tribe. Now, after all these years have passed, the Merkids decide that the debt is still unpaid. And they know that this outcast family has recently brought in a young bride. So one night, their horsemen set off towards the lonely gear in the upper Kerala. Inside, everyone is sleeping on the ground as usual. The old grandmother is half dozing when she feels it first. The faint vibration in the ground as dozens of hooves drum the earth. She snaps awake, listens, and realizes that riders are coming fast. She shouts to wake the household. Erlun is in charge instantly. Even though Temujin is married now, Erlun is still the commander of this family. She throws the children onto the best horses, takes the youngest little Tomlun onto her own lap, and gets ready to bolt for the mountains. Erlun doesn't know exactly who's coming, but she knows exactly what they want, the young bride. In her cold step calculus, she makes a brutal decision. She leaves behind Börte, Suchigil, and the old woman with her ox cart as bait to slow the raiders down while she escapes with the children. It works. The raiders arrive, focus on the cart and the women, and by the time they get organized, Erlun and the younger generation are already disappearing into the slopes and crags of Burkhan Khaldun, the god mountain. Temujin has obeyed his mother. He fled with her and saved his life. But then it hits him. By doing the smart thing, he has just lost the person that mattered the most to him. For several days, the Merkids prowl the area while Temujin hides in the forests of Burkhan Khaldun. At last, they decide to leave. Temujin sends Burchu, Jelme and Belgutai to shadow the raiders and make sure they've really withdrawn. Up there on the mountain, he starts to think. Mongols view the world as divided into earth and sky. The soul of the earth lives in its moving paths, the rivers, the winds, etc. Burkhan Khaldun is special. 3 major rivers rise from its slopes, and it's the highest peak in that region, the place closest to the eternal blue sky. Temujin prays there for 3 days, thanking the mountain for its protection and asking it for a path forward. Its 3 rivers offer him 3 possible futures. He could go back down the Kereyid and try again to live as a simple herder, but he now knows that a quiet life on the open steppe means one good raid can knock everything over. He could follow the Onon River back to his childhood territory, go back to fishing and trapping marmots and birds. Safe maybe, but poor and invisible. Or he could follow the Tool River into the territory of Ong Khan, asking for help and stepping into the deadly game of Khans and steppe wars. On paper, the first 2 options are safer. He has already lost one wife, but he could in time steal another, the way his father stole Erlun. But something is different now. He misses Börte. He tells himself, and later he tells others, that when she was taken, it was as if not just his home, but his chest had been ripped open. He decides that life is not worth living without her, and he will get her back, or will die trying. He chooses the Tool River. He chooses war in order to get his wife back. Temujin rides to Ong Khan's camp, not as a begging nobody, but as a person who gave him a priceless sable coat and pledged himself as a son. He explains what has happened and tells him that he wants to launch a raid on the Merkids. Now, Ong Khan could easily say, forget that girl, here's another wife, and offer Temujin a woman from his own camp. But he agrees to help with the raid. The old Khan has his own unfinished business with the Merkids, and Temujin's request gives him a perfect excuse to attack. Ong Khan also sends the message to another ally who has been making a name for himself in battle, Temujin's childhood anda, Jamukha. Jamukha answers the summons and readily agrees to fight for Temujin's cause. So now you have the classic steppe formation. Ong Khan commanding the right wing, Jamukha the left wing, and Temujin with his tiny band at the center, anchored by a single obsessive objective, Börte. They gather at the headwaters of the Onon River, cross the mountains, and drop down into Merkid territory. Some of the Merkid hunters spot the oncoming army and race back to warn their people. Panic. Carts are loaded, gears pulled down, people rushing to get away. Temujin barrels into the chaos, and according to the secret history, he rides from camp to camp, shouting Börte's name. Börte, meanwhile, has been given as a wife to an older Merkid warrior. She, Sochikal, and the grandmother are shoved into a cart and sent away from the fighting. She does not know who is attacking. The last time riders came in the dark, she was kidnapped. She does not want to be dragged off by strangers a second time. But somewhere in that mess of fleeing carts and fleeing horses, she hears a voice screaming her name. She takes a moment to recognize it. As soon as she recognizes the voice, she jumps down the moving cart and runs towards the sound. Temujin is twisting in his saddle, shouting and searching, so worked up that he doesn't even recognize her shape in the dark. She grabs his reins. For a second, he almost reacts violently before his brain catches up and he realizes that Börte is holding his horse. They throw themselves upon each other in an embrace. He finally has her back. He has the one good thing in his life back. At that point, he's not interested in more blood or more loot. He tells the allied raiders to break off the attack. He got what he came for, everything else is noise. But the rescue creates a new problem. Börte is pregnant. The sources are awkwardly silent about how Genghis Khan felt about this during the pregnancy. The timeline is tight. In 1179, Börte gives birth to a son. Temujin names him Jochi, a word that can mean guest or visitor. People have argued ever since then what that name implies. Did he doubt the boy's paternity? Or did it have something to do with the fact that they were living as guests in Jamukha's camp at the time? We don't know. What we do know is this. Later in life, when his other sons sneer that Jochi is a Merkid bastard, he tells them, "You were not there, you did not see what happened. If I say he's my son, he's my son. Who are you to say otherwise?" Whatever the biology, Genghis Khan defends Börte and Jochi all his life. After the Merkid raid, Temujin brings a small band to Jamukha's encampment, located in the fertile valley between the Kereyid and Onon. For the second time in their lives, they renew their Anda oath, this time as grown men in a public ceremony in front of their followers. They promise to never forsake each other. They drink and feast together, and that night they sleep under a single blanket, the way true brothers would have done as children. For Temujin's family, joining Jamukha is a clear upgrade. No more scraping by on rats and river fish. Now there's a constant supply of meat and milk, protection, and the prospect of real herds. But there's a price tag. By joining Jamukha, Temujin is choosing the life of a steppe warrior full time. Raids, counter raids, clan feuds, the constant grind of Khan against Khan. Plus, under the surface, old ideas about status start to bite. Steppe lineages are seen as different bones. Close, high status lines are white bone. More distant or lower status lines are black bone. Temujin and Jamukha are distant cousins who claim descent from a shared ancestress through different husbands. Jamukha's line descends from the first husband, who was a respectable herder, while Temujin's line descends from the second, the kidnapper, who was a forest hunter. So now Jamukha can tell a story where his line is older, purer, whiter bone, and Temujin's is the rougher black bone offshoot. As long as Temujin is in Jamukha's orbit, that story puts him in a junior slot. And if there's one thing we have learned from the Biktar episode, it's that Temujin does not do junior for very long. At first, he generally seems content to learn. For a year and a half, he follows Jamukha's lead. He watches how he organizes troops, how he talks to the followers, how he fights, how he organizes the camp. But gradually, Jamukha starts treating him less like an equal Anda and more like a younger brother who should know his place. And there's another voice in Temujin's ears now. Börte. She knows what Temujin is capable of. She begins telling him openly, he orders you around too much, you need to break free, we need to get away. Temujin loves his Anda, but he loves Börte more. The break happens in the spring of 1181. Jamukha calls for the winter camp to move to summer pastures. The entire band is on the move. Animals, people, carts stretching out across the plain. Temujin and Jamukha are riding together at the front as usual. At this point, Jamukha makes a decision that reveals the real hierarchy in his head. He tells Temujin, you take the sheep and goats and camp by the river. I'll take the horses and stay closer to the mountains. Horses are prestige. Sheep and goats are lower status. Temujin falls along the column to where his own family is traveling with their animals. He tells Arloon what Jamukha said. He's generally unsure how to react. Before his mother can answer, Börte cuts in. She insists that this is it, they must split, and that anyone who wants to follow can come with them. That night, when Jamukha stops and pitches camp, Temujin and his family quietly slip away into the darkness and keep riding through the night. Whether it was pre-planned or spontaneous, many of Jamukha's followers choose to go with Temujin. They also take their herds with them. Even so, Jamukha does not chase them, but the damage is already done. Two men who swore to be brothers once are now two separate centers of gravity on the steppe. From that split in 1181 flows almost 20 years of conflict. Temujin, barely 19 when he breaks away, seems to make up his mind. He will become a Khan in his own right. So he begins building a following, family by family, clan by clan, offering protection and a more merit-based system for people tired of the old aristocratic order. Jamukha, for his part, forms his own alliance made of white-bone lineages. The two sides raid each other, steal women and herds from each other, kill each other's followers, and gradually drag the entire Mongol world into a civil war. Unlike the more unified Naiman, Tatars, or Kereyid, Mongols are still scattered into lineages. Neither Temujin nor Jamukha can quite pull them all together yet. But Temujin keeps growing. In the summer of 1189, at age 27, Temujin decides to roll the dice. He makes a play for the title of the Khan of all Mongols. He calls a Kurultai, a great council for this. In a Kurultai, you vote by showing up. If your family appears, that counts as an endorsement. If you stay away, that's a no. So the question hanging in the air is, will enough clans come? Will the scattered Mongol families on the steppe really risk their fate on this former outcast, this runaway slave, this boy who once had nothing but his own shadow for company? And how will Jamukha react when he hears that his black-bone childhood Anda is daring to call himself the Khan of all Mongols? We'll find out in the next episode how that first claim to leadership plays out and how the feud between these two men gets uglier, bloodier, and impossible to walk away from.